welcome to the Scuttlebutt podcast. I'm Rich Mellon, and we are here. It is now the end of January. Life is good. I have my beautiful co-host sitting across the, well, I was going to call it a table, but it's kind of small. It's like a stool top. Sandy, how are you tonight?
I'm good. I'm warmer. And I think most of Alberta is warmer as well. So.
We couldn't get any colder. No. I think it went.
Well, we could have, but let's just not challenge the gods for that.
Yeah, a week ago, I think we were colder than the surface of the moon, weren't we?
High heights to shoot for.
Yeah. So please introduce our guest.
So tonight we have Stacey Skrypan with us, and Stacey is a trapper and a mother and a wife and a very busy person. So Stacey, thanks so much for joining us tonight. It's really great to have you on the line.
Well, thank you for having me. It's quite a pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
Not so much honor. You'll be tired of us here by the time we're done. So
maybe she'll be tired of you, but she will not be tired of me.
I gotta tell you, 40 years.
Oh gosh. Yeah. Okay, now be nice.
So tell us a little bit about you. Whereabouts in the world are you located? Like, we don't need an address. We just general location. And okay. What kind of a childhood or upbringing that got you to where you're at now?
Okay. Well, I was born at a very young age. Was brand new. Grew up in a very small town called Plamondon, or closer to Lac-La-Biche is where I live now. I'm the oldest of 10 children. My mom and dad chose to homeschool us and live a very outdoors, work ethic kind of filled life. Work hard but play harder on the weekends.
I guess so. 10 children.
Yeah, right. I might have put in some time in helping around the house. So it was either I was in the house helping my mom, or I was outside helping my dad with the yard work, or just trying to make things a go. And like I said, my mom homeschooled us too, so that way, we had time to learn life skills on top of just our academics as well. So
yeah, you could do your multiplication tables while you were feeding the hogs, right?
yeah, you get that. You counting taters.
Yeah. You guys were multitaskers before the word was invented.
Exactly. You look that up in the dictionary, you see all 12 of us.
You know what? I think the whole concept of life skills is something that's missing from the average education these days. So weren't you fortunate to have that experience in your life?
So blessed. And I've also been doubly blessed in the fact that now I'm able to continue that tradition, and I homeschool our two daughters. They're now 15 and 12. So, reaching an age where they're teenagers, but, still being able to go out into the world with, I think a really strong work ethic, work life skills, in that, my 12-year-old could fix you up a meal or plant a garden and, still be able to read, academically, reach her achievements as well. So to me, it's nice to be able to say, hey, let's learn this today. And then we go out and do it. Right. And you get that hands-on approach that not many kids get.
No.
So, yeah.
Another thing, too, though, that I find fascinating and something that's changing so much with the way society is changing. People who come from large families, there was no such thing as an introvert, was there? Or that was the skinny one in the family.
Pretty much. If you didn't move fast, you didn't eat.
You guys probably had the same menu I had as a kid. Take it or leave it. Those were your menu choices.
Absolutely. It was lots of potatoes, lots of deer, some moose.
Yeah, the meat and potatoes stuff. When we look back now, today everybody's talking about, the carnivore diet and all that. And I say to Sandy, I said, that was us, I mean, you might have had bacon and eggs for breakfast, but then you had fried moose steak for lunch, and then you had a moose roast for supper, and you did it the same thing again the next day, over and over.
Yeah, it was effective, and nobody starved to death.
Nope. No, I'm not a poster child for starving. That's a fact.
Yep.
So
and then you worked hard enough the next day to not stay fat.
That's true. Just for the benefit of people who aren't from Alberta, how would you describe where Lac La Biche is relative to like maybe a landmark like Calgary or Edmonton?
Oh, okay. So I'm about 2.5, 3 hours northeast of Edmonton.
Right.
So yeah, we're kind of out there. We're like that halfway point between Edmonton and Fort McMurray.
That's right. Yeah.
So,
well, we've been there a couple of times in our lifetime, but we do have listeners who are from all over the place, and many of them from the U.S. So it's good to give them a bit of a landmark to say, okay, well, that's north, and there's probably snow there, and they'd be right.
They would not be wrong. Yeah, I think we're sitting at about 18 inches of snow right now, and like you guys said, we've just come out of the deep freeze, so it was a beautiful day today. We hit, I think it was -3, so
yeah, I know.
It's kind of nice.
Yeah. No coats and toques today, was there?
No, nope. Got to check the cows without all my gear. That was kind of nice.
Well, that's awesome. Stacey, did you have experience trapping when you were growing up? Like, is that something that you did with your dad or your grandpa?
Kind of. We had a family friend, and he was kind of like, I guess you could call him an adopted grandpa. So, when I was about 3, my dad and his brothers helped him build a cabin on his trap line. So just kind of north of Wandering River, again, on the way to Fort McMurray, north of nowheres. And I could just tell you, like, my best memories were most weekends up at the cabin at the trap line and, visiting Trapper Don. He was this giant of a man. And he just loved having all of us kids out there just running rampant. We were like a bunch of feral children all over the place, me and my cousins. And
we've met a few of those. I think we might have raised 3.
Probably.
I love that term. I love that term, feral children.
And it was great. There was a rope swing, and there was really no rules other than, you came when supper was ready, because all the moms were, brought in a bag of homemade buns or a salad or a casserole, and there was, a turkey cooking in the wood stove, and, we just played hard, and then it was time to eat, and then we played hard and kicked the can till, we all crashed one by one by the fire. It was great.
What a great childhood.
Oh yeah, that sounds so much like mine, except it was before cans were invented. Yeah.
Well,
carry on.
It was a stump, but whatever. But yeah, so like we were always out at the trap line, and Trapper Don was out every winter, and he trapped all winter, and we would skidoo out, and my dad had built, because there was a few of us kids, remember, so he had built what he called the skiboose, and he would pull that with his old 340 skidoo, and we'd hike in, and it would be like camping every weekend in the winter at the cabin, and got to see all sorts of animals, and we weren't really allowed to help with the preparing of the animals, like skinning and such, but he always had a good story, and just good times, and he involved us kids in that. We built a love for the outdoors in a very organic, natural way that it just became such a huge part of my life. And I never could imagine not having that. And then when I was 30, he passed away very suddenly from an aneurysm. And I felt a giant part of me was kind of like that story had ended in my life, like that chapter had closed. And, like I didn't know how to get it back.
Right.
So it was, yeah, like so that tells you how much it affects a person, or, creates who you are as a child growing up with that, right?
Oh, exactly. So you, at 30, you found yourself a mentor to get you out trapping?
No, actually, I was older than that. It was only 3 years ago. So my husband is part of a flying club. He had he has his private license. And Lac La Biche puts on an event every winter called the Winter Festival of Speed. And it's actually a really cool event. And they have ice races on the lake. They clear a track and there's cars and skidoos. And they also have a fly-in, which is pretty novel in that they make a huge runway, and private airplane pilots can come in and land their planes right on the ice. And so I was taking photographs that year of all the planes landing on the ice. And again, this giant of a man shows up, and he was part of the flying club, but he was also a trapper and part of the trapping club. And he shows up, 6'7" of him, wearing a fur coat that's made out of 7 wolf pelts, because that's how big he was. And I met him, and I'm taking these photos, and he's talking to me, and he was so charismatic. And he was known to all of his friends as Bob the Trapper, right? And it was like, wow, this guy's really cool. And it was like a part of me opened up again, and it was like, wow, that's really cool. And he's like, he was so friendly. He just brought you into himself, and he just wanted to be friends with everyone. And he was like, why don't you come out to Agnes Lake and visit me, and come see me on the trap line. And we decided to, after, we all became friends with the family, we did. And we went out to the trap line and visited, and it was like, wow, this is really good. And he was the one who was very instrumental in encouraging me and saying, why don't you? And so it was probably a month later, I had started Taekwondo with my daughters, and I met, I had a friend there, and we were talking about trapping and, how I thought it would be really neat to start it up. And he's like, that's really funny, because next weekend, my dad's teaching the trapping course here in Lac La Biche. And so I signed up, and I'm like, here we go. I guess this is what I'm going to do, because I'd really like to. And it was very spur of the moment decision, really fueled by Bob the Trapper saying, well, why don't you? And I asked myself, well, why don't I? And so I did.
That's very cool. That's very cool.
Yeah. So it was pretty neat. After the 3-day weekend course, I called them up and I said, hey, guess what I just went and did? I said, hope you want a junior, because, that offer better stand, because you just gained one.
Can't back out now.
So
it's too late.
What do your daughters think of this?
They actually, I think they like telling their friends that their mom's a trapper and a hunter, because it's a little bit of shock value.
Yeah, kids are that way.
Yeah, you're right. I'm all of 5'1", and they think it's hilarious that they're taller than mom, and yet their mom goes out hunting and trapping every day, and then I enjoy it. And then when their friends come over, they're like, hey, come to the skinning shack. Look at what mom's got going on here. And
oh, that's awesome.
Although I think the one day I trapped, I think the one day though, when I trapped a skunk, they were not very happy with me.
Oh, we've done that before. We don't have, we've never run into any skunks up on our trap line or even here at home, but they're out there.
Yeah.
They are. And
go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say with the chickens around here, they kind of stick around, and they're definitely not a critter you want visiting very regularly.
Yeah, you have a ranch, right?
Yeah, we have some chickens, and we run purebred Dexter cattle, and we also raise miniature horses and quarter horses.
Okay. So, I mean, being a rancher, for one thing, you're very tied to the land as it is, and the animals. But now you also have that interaction between you and the wild, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that as a rancher and a trapper, they go hand in hand really well. I hold my residential license, so I run a little bit of a residential line here on the farm, which is nice because then I can do predator control. I could, take care of the population on, coyotes. This year it was fox. I couldn't believe how many I took off of the farm this year.
Really?
I got 14 fox this year so far, just on the one quarter.
Okay. And so how are you trapping them?
Well, I set up some bait stations, and then just had some, footholds and some snares coming in on various trails that I knew that they were using. I also set a couple on rabbit trails because there's quite a few rabbits this year.
Yeah.
And was pretty successful with that as well. Yeah, so it wasn't very hard, let me tell you. They just kept running into them.
They always talk about smart like a fox, and they're the dumbest canine, right?
I would have to say so.
Yeah, they are. And it's always funny. They had a really good PR man, right?
Yeah.
He bought them all kinds of publicity that they didn't deserve. When you're snaring, are you using power rounds or are you using free hangers? What are you using?
I'm using half and half, I guess, like some of the Seneca style with the stingers, just using a number 9 wire and trees on trails, right? Like, so just because we're pretty wooded where I'm going. So I just kind of use a lot of the trees for entanglement, or the lights out. I've been using them as well on some of the, like the fence lines. They're actually really nice and easy to set for that. Just kind of been playing around with a few different things, seeing what works, just because I'm so new at it. Like, this is only my 3rd winter.
Right.
In trapping. Okay. So.
Well, that's cool. Yeah. I mean, and you're footholding them too. I mean, it's always an accomplishment to foothold.
Yeah, I'd actually have to say like 80% of my catches have been on footholds this year, but I think in due part would be that I used bait stations, like deer, like leftover deer parts and my moose bones when I was done butchering. I used that for bait stations or whatever rabbit guts I had left over. Well, they seem to work pretty good for that.
Part of it though too would be you'd be setting your snares for coyote, right? You'd be setting for height and size for coyote more than fox.
I was, yeah, but they still seem to find their way into them.
Yeah, no, yeah. It's amazing sometimes what you catch in what. That's a fact.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, the skunk was one of them. He was in one of my fox footholds.
Oh. That's exciting.
He wasn't a happy camper when I showed up.
No.
Was the snow all green, like nuclear green all the way around him?
Oh, and like he had dug 6 inches deep in one area. He was so not happy. I smelt him coming around the corner and I'm going, oh, I guess that's today.
So when you showed up with your new trapper certificate in your hand, what did Trapper Don say?
Bob the Trapper?
Oh, Bob, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so Trapper Don was the first one, and Bob the Trapper was who I was mentoring under for my first 2 years. He was pretty happy and proud, and then I had told him, like, I wanted for myself, I don't see too many people in my generation taking up trapping anymore and being really serious about it. And so I told him, like, in honor of Trapper Don and in him, taking me on, I wanted to pass on that legacy and keep it living in myself and then, hopefully in my children and my family, and how, I don't want those old skills and that knowledge lost. I think it's important. It's where we've come from, right?
I mean, trapping is what explored, opened, created Canada. Since the late 1600s was when the first fur trappers started over here, driven by the beaver felt hats. And you would know it today. You would not know it. I don't think they teach it in Canadian history anymore. I don't even know if they teach history in school anymore. It's something that
I have no idea.
Yeah, I probably have a better chance at it than you because your mom taught you it.
My mom taught me, and I taught my girls. Like last year, we focused on Canadian history, so I know for sure I put that in the girls. That's
good. That's good because we get a lot, of course, with the TV show, and that we have a lot of interaction with people. And one of the saddest things you hear, and it's so common, is I didn't even know trapping was legal anymore. And it's like,
wow.
Yeah. Isn't that something? I had a big discussion with an American trapper today. And he was going on and on about they're starting to lose some of their rights to use footholds and that kind of stuff. And they're moving to cage trapping, which I cannot imagine how hard that would be to do. Those cages are so big and so bulky to move around. No, not to mention expensive, And he was saying that, that Americans didn't like to be told what to do. And I says, well, nobody does. And that, we ended up, being signatory to the agreement for international humane trapping standards, right? And that kept the fur market open, or the fur trade open with the European Union. And I said, you're welcome. And he says, what do you mean by that? I said, well, you guys aren't signatory to it. But if we hadn't done that, you never would be. And then that's when he got into they didn't want to be told what to do. And I said, I understand that. We didn't either, but we sat back and we said to them, okay, now you're all worried about what's humane trapping. You explain to us your definition of humane trapping. And once they did that, then we designed traps that met that. And they're caught. Yeah. They're stuck. They can't say anything more because they defined humane trapping. We met the definition. We're good to go.
There are still a lot of people though out there, and I don't know if you encounter very many of them, Stacey, that don't understand trapping or the fur industry in general. Is that something that you've encountered? I mean, living in a more remote place like you do and like what we do, I think we're more likely to run into like-minded people here. But do you ever run into people who are anti-fur because they don't know anything about what modern fur trapping is?
Absolutely, I have. And what the exciting part is that I can educate them. Somebody who is passionate about it can kind of, I guess, translate that in that, if you just sit down and explain it to them, a lot of them have opened up. When I have sat down and said, hey, you know what, this is what I do. And they're like, oh my gosh, how could you do that? And I'm like, well, it's easy because, for me on the farm, I can say, hey, I use it for population control, predator control, even disease control, keeping mange or, mites down on the coyotes by not letting them get out of hand, or, I'm protecting my livestock. And then with that, I can turn it around and say, but I could go a step farther in that I know that Alberta's rules are some of the best in the country for ethical and humane trapping, or even hunting. And then even go farther than that and say it's actually eco-friendly. Your North Face jacket that's made out of nylon is going to disintegrate 400 years from now. But my fur mittens that I've made, when I'm done with them in 20 years and they finally break down, guess what happens to them? They just go back to nature. Yeah. So, it's a green alternative that's not new, right? It's just going back to your roots.
Isn't it funny though? So in today's,
it's fun.
Isn't it funny? This is kind of like the twist of having European Union define what humane was and then us sticking it to them. But to use the green argument to defend trapping that's been around since man first started to walk upright, to be able to use.
Well, and that's just it. We needed it.
Well, yeah. This is like anybody that doesn't think we need oil and gas anymore should have tried living in Alberta the last week.
Oh, good Lord. They'd be begging for the oil and gas to be turned on like full throttle.
Well, that's interesting, though. I mean, I think you probably see a kinder, gentler side of people when it comes to being anti-fur or anti-hunting, and that we get very little of it, but the ones we get are pretty rabid. But you go back, look at it, and they're from the UK, and there's no talking to them anyway, right? There's no.
It's like trying to bang your head on a wall.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I look at it like this: they're not going to change my mind, so why should I be so egotistical to think that I'm going to change their mind? So I just walk away from it, leave it be. They'll never understand.
Absolutely, yeah.
They'll never understand what it is to to have to defend your calf crop for the year, and try to make sure that you don't lose any to wolves or coyotes. And people just don't understand the reality of that. Although I see this week now, there has been 2 different coyote attacks in the States back east. And I think maybe they might notice it. I don't know.
Well, I think it's really important what
when
you
pets
do.
Start disappearing.
Sorry, what was that?
I said when their pets start disappearing from their back step and they say something.
Yeah, but the one was a toddler that was attacked, and his dad killed the coyote with his bare hands.
Yeah,
That's right. I did see that.
Good on the fella, but what ends up happening though? I mean, they just outlawed trapping in California, and now they've hired a whole bunch of trappers. The state is now paying them to go kill these animals, and then they have to destroy the fur. Isn't that the biggest obscenity ever? That you're killing this animal for whatever reason, and then now because of your inane beliefs, you can't use it, you can't utilize it.
It's very similar to what goes on in Europe.
And it seems like such a waste.
Well, it is a waste, and it happens in Europe as well, especially in Holland, where they have a real muskrat problem there. And they pay trappers, but they incinerate muskrats. So, and there are hundreds of thousands that are dispatched and wasted every year
because they do not believe that it's ethical to use that fur. How it's more ethical to allow it to go to waste, I don't understand. I truly don't understand.
Yeah.
You have, though, you do something with your fur too, don't you?
So after last year, Bob the Trapper, it was really funny because it was he ended up introducing me to Morley Smith. Now I know you guys know Morley. He was the wolf man that you guys had on one of your episodes.
Absolutely.
Teaching how to snare wolves. So he was like, he needs a junior, and I think you need to be, signing up under him. And so I ended up talking to Morley. Morley took me on, and then in December, Bob the Trapper passed away on his line.
Oh dear.
So this year, I've been trapping with Morley and learning what I can. Obviously, he's a huge wealth of knowledge. But we were talking one day, and I had mentioned that I wanted to learn how to tan my own hides, and then eventually make mitts, hats, make stuff, and come full circle with what I'm doing. In that I can trap it, tan it, and then create a product that's going to keep people warm and, bring people pleasure. And that way, again, you're bringing up the wasting thing, but also learning skills that are being lost again.
Absolutely.
That are being passed down, right?
Well, I'm trying so hard to find somebody who does the old traditional smoked moose hide tanning. And I understand that, they need to, they probably have 4 or 5 on the go at once at different stages, and that. And I would love to do a video about it because it is a lost art practically. It is so.
It absolutely is. So I found, I was kind of talking around town, and there's a lady here, and she's agreed to teach me how to do that this spring when, it's not 40 below outside, on how to traditionally tan moose hides. So I'm super excited for that. I think it's going to be great. And then Bob the Trapper had introduced me to a friend of his, Robert. He's a taxidermist in Edmonton, and he's willing to come down this spring as well and show me how to tan all my fox hides that I got and some rabbit hides. So I can make those into some, some nice headbands or hats, trim on mittens, and not let that go to waste. And
you are very, very
pretty excited over that.
Yeah. Well, at one time, those wild fox were worth a lot of money, but then they started ranching them.
Yeah.
And it was.
Yes, unfortunately.
Well, yeah. And I mean, suddenly now you have a red fox that is the size of a small wolf. And there's no way a wild wolf or a wild fox can compete with that, right? They're so much smaller.
No.
But turn them into something special like that, and it's a great way to diversify your product, right?
Absolutely. And I think it's pretty special to be able to say, hey, you know what? I know exactly where that fur came from because I trapped it, I tanned it, and then I made this. And, you know, like, I can't think of a better Christmas present to give, a friend, or, sell something like that so they can, give somebody a gift or buy it for themselves for, to enjoy for years to come. And it comes with a story, right? Like, you just know exactly where it came from and how it was handled.
Yeah, I think those are the things that people are starting to pay attention to again, thankfully, is that they are getting a little bit more connected to where things come from and how they're sourced and who made them and what is the connection to their community, their neighbors, what have you. So I think that's spectacular that you do that.
Oh, I do too. I really, my hat's off to you, and I might have to come see you when you're tanning fox.
Well, there's a few now. They're hanging out there. Yeah, I'd love to do that. And like what Sandy was saying, I really appreciate that too. And that, like, I noticed that even in the farming industry, like, people want to know, like, it's no different than our farmers markets. They want to know where their cows came from for that steak. I've been selling honey from my bees, and people are saying, I like that I can buy local. I like that I can support local. And it gives you a sense of pride in saying, like, that came from here, and we can all feed each other or take care of each other and help each other out, while learning new skills and keeping traditions alive, right?
Oh, and the satisfaction, the health of your own soul after having accomplished something like that. I mean, that's a glow that lasts you right through a week of 40 below. You know what I mean? Once you give
yeah, it is
a gift that you went out and caught and tanned and then created yourself, or whether you processed it through your bees or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of satisfaction in that. That's a lot of good mental health right there.
It is. It absolutely is. I mean, like you say, the glow. Maybe it offsets a little bit of frostbite on my cheek.
So how many bees do you keep?
I have 6 hives.
Okay, and you're fair north there, so you get lots of sunshine and
in the summertime.
In the summertime. I was getting there.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to also say there's lots of blooming agricultural crops there in the summertime.
Usually,
yes,
not under 18 inches of snow right now.
So how much?
Right?
How many pounds of honey would they produce for you in a year?
So last year was a bit of a slow year, just because it rained so much. They're on my hay field, which is nice because then I know that it's only wildflower and alfalfa that my bees are getting their source of nectar and pollen from. Right. But I got about 360 pounds of honey.
Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome. And man, it's so good, doesn't it?
There is nothing like, really, I guess you'd call it organic and natural honey, non-pasteurized. And is there a way that you tell? I read something the other day, and I don't know if this is true or not, but it said that natural honey crystallizes, where
it absolutely does.
Okay, good. So I have authentic honey in my cupboard.
There you go. Yeah, and like you say, nothing tastes better than just licking that straight off your fingers, right from the honeycomb. It's amazing. Like you can't go wrong with that. I've made batches of mead from different years of honey, and it's really neat because you can taste the difference in flowers in what was more predominant that year. Like some years it's drier, wetter, different flowers show up, so you can taste the different qualities in your honey.
Well, and like this year, I mean, because it rains so much, I mean, the bees aren't quite as productive when they're swimming back and forth, but I used to know an old buddy, and that he did bees, and he would go anywhere to find fireweed. And he loved that fireweed.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah, we have some fireweed out here, but it's not as prevalent as in other areas. But I'm sure my bees have found it.
Right.
It's cool. So much that you're teaching your kids about just how to live. Like, honestly, if the apocalypse happened, there'd be a stampede to your door because people would know they could get
Yeah, you're not allowed to give away my address.
Oh no, we won't do that. But fed and warm, I mean, those are two things that people be clamoring for.
Well, Sandy.
Exactly.
Sandy used to manage a team of bankers, and it was always a joke when they found out that she was a trapper and a hunter and all that. That they always said that when the zombie apocalypse happened, that they're headed for Sanders' place.
No doubt. Can't blame them.
But you know what else you're teaching your kids? Is the absolute confidence that they can grab the bull by the horns no matter what that shape that bull takes in their life, and they can get things done. And that confidence
absolutely, and that
is the biggest gift you can give a child.
Absolutely, I agree. And even the knowing that even if I don't know the answer right now, I can figure it out, because there's nothing short of, I guess how to put it is, I've taught them how to learn, like not just take people's word for it, but to go out, look it up, research it, figure it out, try things. Maybe you'll make a mistake. Maybe you don't get it the first time, but keep trying, because you'll figure it out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's like the definition of being a trapper. First time
no doubt.
You get your hand caught in a 330, you learn you're not doing that again.
Thankfully, I haven't learned that lesson yet.
It's a nasty one, but on a little lady like you, it might break your arm off. So,
no doubt.
tell us the interesting things that you have learned from Morley.
He's a very passionate man about what he does. I know that he said it like he's done this right from when he was a kid. He grew up, he said his dad used to run dog sled teams or horses to go check the traps and hunting and everything. And I just find that fascinating. Wolves are definitely his thing.
Oh, yeah.
The wolf count is down since the wolf call. So I haven't been able to experience trapping a wolf yet with him. It's definitely something I want to, but I think the thing that I appreciate the most about Morley is his desire to teach. When I came on, I had thoughts of, will he even want, a lady trapper following him around, and he was very welcoming and even encouraged me to bring my husband, bring my kids, and, let's go and have fun. Let's go learn together. Let's just, experience it. And, if it works, it doesn't work. Who cares? We got out. We were outside and we had fun, and, we had a good day.
Right? It's like Wayne Gretzky said, you don't score on 100% of the shots that you don't take, right? And this,
absolutely.
We get so many questions about, I've got this, and this on my trap line, and so where should I set my traps? And the first question I ask them is, how much do you know about your line? Do you know what
right.
the animals use? What's important there? What's important to a marten on my line? Maybe the last thing that's important on your line. My son traps marten on his line down at Drayton Valley on the top of a pine hill. Well, I've never caught a marten in the pine in my whole life. You know what I mean? And the thing about Morley is he's always out there. He's always watching. He's always paying attention. And that attention to detail, he's a great teacher, like you say, but you have to be a great student. You have to know the questions to ask. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. No, and 100% I would agree with that, because he's, even in his storytelling and even in his everyday, walking, he's always teaching something. And I don't think he even realizes it. He's so good at it. Even when I was, deer hunting this fall, he was like, so, have you done this and have you done that? And, this worked for me one year, but it sure didn't work for me over here. And he's just a wealth of knowledge. And I love that he is so observant in nature, and that he just knows. I just hope to learn a quarter of what he knows would be amazing.
Oh, and I mean, wolves, he can talk to them, and I swear to God, because he understands them so much. I'll never forget the one set. I know I've talked about this before. I talk about it all the time, because that insight that he had to them. I don't have that insight with wolves. Some people have it with muskrats or have whatever. His insight is with wolves. And we were setting up this bait. And he said, are we setting any footholds? And I says, no. I said, I can't, because I can't maintain my 48-hour check. So I couldn't do that. He says, well, this is where we would put a foothold. Yeah. And I said, why? And he says, well, you see that it's kind of on the hill and it's back from the bait. And he says, there's these couple of trees that's between this spot and the bait. And he says, a young one will get itself a piece of that bait and they'll come up here where it can lay and it can watch, make sure nothing's going to attack it, and it can eat out of sight. And I looked at it and I thought, that sounds like a good story. And then when the wolves came back through, one had done exactly that, and it stepped right where he said you should put a foothold, and it was amazing, and I just.
Oh, that guy.
I mean, it came so natural to him, and once he said it, I mean, it was so clear, it was so crystal clear, the truth that was ringing out of it, I didn't have that connection to the animal to make that leap,
Yeah. Oh, and he just seems to know. It's like second nature to him, I think, just because he has spent so much of his life out in the bush, and most of it has been by himself. So he's had no choice, I think, but to just enjoy and to take it all in and learn it and process it and just create a relationship with nature around him. And it just works. It's kind of neat.
So what is your favorite animal to trap?
This year, fox. Yeah, Morley's.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Morley's taken to calling me the foxy lady, and it's almost sticking. So
yeah.
I like them. I actually really love the fur. I think it's beautiful. I don't think we see enough fox out in garments.
100%.
So I'm kind of excited to make them into something. The fur is so soft and luxurious, and the color is rich and beautiful. And for me, like you mentioned before, I'm not a very big person. They're actually pretty easy for me to skin and get fleshed out really nice. To me, I could take a lot of pride in that. Like I could do a really nice finished product, and I feel good about that, right? Because then I'm still honoring the animal and not doing shoddy workmanship on it too.
Yeah, so that
I really like the fact that you're doing a lot of this stuff yourself. I mean, it is it just is full circle, right, for everything that you're doing there, trapping the animal and whatnot. But just to make a garment or mitts or whatever out of it, I just think it's phenomenal.
Well, in today's world, I mean,
thank you.
All it takes is money. You can have a Canada Goose jacket, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, right? I mean, and money in today's world, money's pretty easy to come by. But to make something out of like your beaver blanket, Sandy, or your gauntlets, your beaver gauntlets, and those kind of things, those have some meaning.
Yeah.
There's you look at that, you cuddle up with one of those beaver pillows on the couch every night, and I can see the smile on your face when you cuddle against it. I mean, there's memories there, there's satisfaction, there's that good happy glow happening in your brain.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of trappers get that satisfaction, whether or not they craft something themselves out of the fur that they've trapped, or whether they have someone like Sis and Furs who did the blanket for us and the pillows. It's an accomplishment from your own effort. And we look at hunting the very same way. A lot of people will say that taxidermy is a waste. Don't bother with it, that kind of thing. And for us, it really just kind of brings back all those memories of whatever trip we were on, who we were with, what the food was like, what the temperature was like. And it's very similar with trapping. You have a product at the end of it, and you know where it came from, what the effort was involved in catching it, and then processing it right through to whatever the end product is.
Even though we're turning some moose into South African sausage this year.
Yeah, well, that's okay.
It's like a multi-continental delicacy.
It's a confusing issue for the moose, but it's wonderful, let me tell you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I believe that. Yeah, absolutely. You can't eat better than that, right? Like, you know where it came from. There's something so satisfying about saying, like I hunted that, I processed that myself, and then I cooked a meal from it, and I could serve this to my family, and I know they're eating the best that I can absolutely give them, and it tastes pretty darn good too at the same time. So, again, a proud feeling of accomplishment there, right?
Yes.
Well, I think it's really important that women are on the landscape when it comes to trapping and hunting and all things outdoors. And I know that there is a big surge in women hunting. I'm hoping that there's going to be more of a surge, more people like you out there, Stacey, who are teaching your daughters and your community members what it's like to be a trapper and to encourage and embrace women in the trapping world. I hope that it's going to be something like what's happened in some of the more urban areas in Eastern Canada, where a lot of women are taking up hunting because it's organic. Right. It's organic meat. And then, you take that one step further. And if you tan a hide of a deer or an elk or a moose or what have you, then it's not too much of a stretch to think about trapping and how trapping is a buffer between urban and the wild, and how trappers play a part in that, and what then can we do with those skins. And, it just it carries the whole flow of bringing probably two diverse, not economies, but cultures, I guess, together, where more rural is interfacing more with urban, and teaching people along the way that it's not really foreign. It's just part that it's been lost because we now prefer to buy things at Walmart or Costco, as opposed to making a quality item out of something that's been sourced in your own backyard.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we've become such an instant society that we've lost that connection with the earth and with what nature offers us. And it's something that I don't want to lose. And I'm definitely, helping pave the way, I guess, to teaching my kids that as well, right?
One of the things that we've believed for many years now is that if dad hunts, fishes, or traps, the kids might. But if mom hunts and fishes and traps, the whole family does.
Wow, that puts a lot of pressure on us ladies, doesn't it?
You know what? I think more than anything, if women are welcomed into it by their significant other or someone from their community, like you, where it wasn't necessarily your husband, but it was your upbringing, and then connecting with people in the community that could reintroduce you to the trapping world. I think that those things are really, really valuable, but it takes somebody with a want and a desire to do those things. So hats off to you, Stacey, because not only are you teaching your daughters, but your daughters bring their friends home and you're teaching their friends. And then their friends go home and talk about it with their parents. And suddenly this whole concept is just a huge wave that's sweeping across the country that really helps bring us into more of a positive light. We're not just a bunch of miserly old men that are living in a shack and gnawing on an old moose bone, right? So
oh, she's just a little bitty thing.
Although there are still some like that.
There are, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. I just think that the face of modern life, embracing the idea of an ancient culture, is really gratifying.
She's just a little itty bitty thing. You just put the responsibility of all this on her shoulders.
Not just her. Not just her. There's lots of women out there, and we know lots of ladies who are as deep into it as we are and as you are. I don't know very many people, though, Stacey, that have as many things going on in their lives, bees and cattle and horses and trapping and homeschooling your children, and on it goes, right? So I think it's remarkable that people are really able to embrace all of this.
It's the old thing. If you want to get something done, give it to a busy person.
That's true. Well, be careful now, because
just do it your own self.
Stacey, because they want something done, and she's a busy girl.
Well, I just enjoy it. I really, truly do enjoy it. And it's nice to be able to share it with people who feel the same way.
Well, that's good. That's good. We have taken up an hour of your evening here on a Friday night, and gosh, we sure appreciate it. We've had a lot of fun. I hope you've had fun. Is there anything finally?
I most certainly have.
Is there anything final you'd like to leave, thoughts you'd like to leave with us?
Oh, nothing like putting me on the spot. No, I can't. I think we've covered enough. I've had a blast. This is so much fun. And it's been an honor, and I hope to do some more, and just keep in touch with you guys. This is
definitely we will do this again. I'm sure we're going to get lots of feedback on this, and thank you. You asked why we wanted to talk to you because you're a new trapper. I said, well, being a new trapper was important. You're also a lady trapper and a mom, and those are new frontiers. So we really appreciate you taking the time.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much, Stacey.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Oh, thank you. It was a pleasure.
Maybe we'll see you all down the line.